page 38 of the Civil Principality, Chapter 9. But coming to the other policy, when a private citizen becomes prince of his fatherland, not through crime or other intolerable violence, but with the support of his fellow citizens, which one would call a civil principality, neither all virtue nor all fortune is necessary to attain it, but rather a fortunate astuteness. I say that one ascends to this principality either with the support of the people or with the support of the great. For in every city these two diverse humors are found, which arises from this, that the people desire neither to be commanded nor oppressed by the great, and the great desire to command and oppress the people. From these two diverse appetites, one of three effects occurs in cities: principality, or liberty, or license. Principality is caused either by the people or by the great, according to which of these sides has the opportunity for it. For when the great see they cannot resist the people, they begin to give reputation to one of themselves, and they make him prince, so that they can vent their appetite under his shadow. So too the people, when they see they cannot resist the great, give reputation to one, and make him prince, so as to be defended with his authority. He who comes to the principality with the aid of the great maintains himself with more difficulty than one who becomes prince with the aid of the people, because the former finds himself prince with many around him who appear to be his equals, and because of this he can neither command them nor manage them to suit himself. But he who arrives in the principality with popular support finds himself alone there, and around him has either no one or very few who are not ready to obey. Besides this, one cannot satisfy the great with decency without injury to others, but one can satisfy the people, for the end of the people is more decent than that of the great, since the great want to oppress and the people want not to be oppressed. Furthermore, a prince can never secure himself against a hostile people, as they are too many. Against the great he could secure himself, as they are few. The worst that a prince can expect from a hostile people is to be abandoned by it. But from the great, when they are hostile, he must fear not only being abandoned, but also that they may come against him. For since there is more foresight and more astuteness in the great, they always move in time to save themselves, and they seek rank from those they hope will win. Also, the prince always lives of necessity with the same people, but he can do well without the same great person, since he can make and unmake them every day, and take away and give them reputation at his convenience. And to better clarify this issue, I say that the great must be considered in two modes chiefly. Either they conduct themselves so that in their proceedings they are obligated in everything to your fortune, or not. Those who are obligated and are not rapacious must be honored and loved. Those who are not obligated have to be examined in two modes. Either they do this out of pusillanimity and a natural defect of spirit. Then you must make use especially of those who are of good counsel. Pusillanimity. Then you should make especially use of those who are good counsel, because in prosperity they bring you honor, and in adversity you do not have to fear them. But when by art and for an ambitious cause they are not obligated, it is a sign that they are thinking more for themselves than for you. And the prince must be on guard against them and fear them as if they were open enemies, because in adversity they will always help ruin him. Therefore, one who becomes a prince through the support of the people should keep them friendly to him, which should be easy for him, because they ask of him only that they not be oppressed. But one who becomes prince against the people with the support of the great must before everything else seek to gain the people to himself, which should be easy for him when he takes up its protection. And since men who receive good from someone from whom they believed they would receive evil are more obligated to their benefactor, the people immediately wish him well, more than if he had been brought to the principality with their support. The prince can gain the people to himself in many modes, for which one cannot give certain rules, because the modes vary according to circumstances, and so they will be left out. I will conclude only that for a prince it is necessary to have the people friendly, otherwise he has no remedy in adversity. Nabis, Nabis, prince of the Spartans, withstood a siege by all Greece and by one of Rome's most victorious armies, and defended his fatherland and his state against him. against them. And when danger supervened, it was enough for him to secure himself only against a few, which would not have been enough if he had a hostile people. And let no one resist my opinion on this with the trite proverb that whoever frowns on the people frowns on mud. For that is true when a private citizen lays his foundation on them and allows himself to think that the people will liberate him if he is oppressed by enemies or by the magistrates. In this case, one can often be deceived, like the Gracchi in Rome and Messer Giorgio Scali in Florence. But when a prince who frowns on the people knows how to command and is a man full of heart, does not get frightened in adversity, does not fail to make other preparations, and with his spirit and his orders keeps the generality of people inspired, he will never find himself deceived by them, and he will see he has laid his foundations well. These principalities customarily run into peril when they are about to ascend from a civil order to an absolute one, for these princes either command by themselves or by means of magistrates. In the latter case, their position is weaker and more dangerous because they remain altogether at the will of those citizens who have been put in the magistracies, who especially in adverse times can take away his state with great ease, either by turning against him or by not obeying him. And the prince does not have time in the midst of danger to seize absolute authority because the citizens and subjects who are accustomed to receive commands from the magistrates are not ready in these emergencies to obey his. He will always have in uncertain times a shortage of those one can trust, for such a prince cannot found himself on what he sees in quiet times when citizens have need of the state, because then everyone runs, everyone promises, and each wants to die for him when death is at a distance. But in adverse times when the state has need of citizens and few of them are to be found, this test is all the more dangerous since one cannot make it but once, and so a wise prince must think of a way by which his citizens always in every quality of time have need of the state and of himself, and then they will always be faithful to him. We'll do one more chapter. Chapter 10. In what mode the forces of all principalities should be measured. Page 42. In examining the qualities of these principalities, one must admit another consideration. That is, whether a prince has enough of a state that he can rule by himself when he needs to, or whether he is always under the necessity of being defended by others. And to better clarify this issue, I say that I judge those capable of ruling by themselves who can, by abundance of either men or money, put together an adequate army and fight a battle against whoever comes to attack them. And I judge as well that those always have necessity of others, who cannot appear in the field against an enemy, but are compelled of necessity to take refuge behind walls and to guard them. The first case has been discussed, and in what is to come we will say what is required for it. In the second case, one can only exhort such princes to fortify and supply their own towns and to take no account of the countryside. And whoever has fortified his town well and has managed the other governing of his subjects, as was said above and will be said below, will be attacked always with great hesitation. For men are always hostile to undertakings where difficulties may be seen, and one can see it is not easy to attack one who has a strong town and is not hated by the people. The cities of Germany are very free, have little countryside, and obey the emperor when they want to. They do not fear either him or any other power around, because they are so well fortified that everyone thinks their capture will be toilsome and difficult. For all of them have suitable ditches and walls and sufficient artillery. They always keep in their public stores enough to drink and to eat and to burn for a year. Besides this, so as to keep the plebes fed without loss to the public, they always keep in common supply enough to be able to give them work for a year in employments that are the nerve and the life of that city and of the industries from which the plebs is fed. They still hold military exercises in repute, and they have many institutions to maintain them. Thus, a prince who has a strong city, does not make himself hated, cannot be attacked, and if indeed there is someone who would attack him, he would have to retreat in shame, for worldly things are so variable that it is next to impossible for one to stand with his armies idle in a siege for a year. And someone might reply, if the people have their possessions outside and see them burning, they will not have patience for this, and the long siege and their love for their own will make them forget the prince. I respond that a powerful and spirited prince will always overcome all these difficulties, now by giving hope to his subjects that the evil will not last long, now by giving them fear of the enemy's cruelty, now by securing himself skillfully against those who appear to him too bold. Besides this, the enemy reasonably would burn and ruin the countryside on his arrival at a time when men's spirits are still hot and willing for defense, and thus the prince should hesitate so much the less, because after several days when spirits have cooled, the damage has already been done, the evil has been received, and there is no more remedy for it. At that time they come to unite with their prince, so much the more since it appears he has an obligation toward them. Their houses having been burned and their possessions ruined in his defense. And the nature of men is to be obligated as much by benefits they give as by benefits they receive. Hence, if one considers all of this well, it should not be difficult for a prudent prince to keep the spirits of his citizens firm in the siege at first and later, provided he does not lack the wherewithal for life and for defense. Coming up, Chapter 11 of Ecclesiastical Principalities, page 45. Peace.